It's tempting to believe that, with the universal availability of satellite navigation systems, working up an estimated position is no longer relevant for the 21st century navigator. However, all electronic devices suffer the possibility of multiple points of failure, and the GPS system in particular has multiple vulnerabilities which we'll cover later in this course, and cannot be 100% relied upon. And even if GPS does allow us to fix our position with remarkable accuracy, a forward estimated position is an extremely valuable tool for predicting our course over the ground when sailing close hauled. Let's start with a simple estimated position based on a starting fix at 1000 UT at outer end of a transit in and out of Colville. When our log reads 2.5 miles, our best course to windward is 052 degrees magnetic, the tide is setting 116 degrees true, 2.9 knots for the entire hour, and an 1100 log reading of 8.5 miles. (052 degrees magnetic minus 7 degrees of westerly variation gives a true course of 045 degrees, and we plot this away from our 1000 fix, giving the line one arrowhead for water track. The distance run on our log from 1000 to 1100 is 6 miles, so we measure this down the water track and strike across to make our dead reckoning position, which is where we might be in the absence of tide. Next we mark off a vector representing the tide we have suffered over the hour. So 116 degrees true, 2.9 miles, to give our estimated position, which is represented by a triangle. The tidal vector is denoted by 3 arrows. And of course we must make a note of a time and log reading alongside the estimated position. There's no reason why you shouldn't plot an estimated position for a period longer than an hour. Here we've sailed 8 miles on a spring tide on 240 degrees true, starting 30 minutes after high water Victoria, and, according to tidal diamond A at Springs, we've suffered 1 hour of tide at 170 degrees at 0.5 knots, and a second hour of 111 degrees at 1.6 knots. Geometrically, we get exactly the same end result if we plot two 1-hour estimated positions. Now let's take a look at using a forward estimated position to determine whether we're on a safe course. Imagine that we're racing from Colville to Sweetwater and every second counts. The wind is in the west, and the best course we can make to windward is 222 degrees true at 4 knots. It's neap tides, and at 2300, 1.5 hours before high water Victoria, we fix our position northeast of Stevens Rock. We are anxious to weather Cape Don and False Cape without tacking. Will we make it? We plot a water track 222 degrees 4 miles from our fix, and from the end of this a tidal vector 095 degrees, 1.9 miles, to give a predicted 0-100 estimated position. If we join our fix to our predicted EP, we can see our predicted ground track, or, as it's more often called these days, course over the ground, or simply COG. This tells us that we should weather Cape Don into Jackson Bay, but then it's going to be touch and go whether we can also make it round False Cape. Now is a good time to consider leeway, which is the difference measured in degrees between our course and our actual track through the water, known as our water track, attributable to hydrodynamic inefficiencies in our hull and keel configuration. Leeway is always from the wind, so if the wind is on your port side, your water track is your course plus leeway, and if the wind is on your starboard side, your water track is your course minus leeway. The amount of leeway you suffer is a function of many things. The wind strength and your point of sailing. More wind means more leeway, and you'll generally suffer more leeway when sailing close-hauled than on a broad reach, and none on a run. The height, direction, and steepness of the waves you're sailing in. All three mean more leeway. How much you are heeling over. The hydrodynamic efficiency of your hull, keel, and rudder. The aerodynamic efficiency of your rig. How old your sails are and how well they're trimmed. How good the person on the helm is. And a dirty bottom can have a huge effect. So, for example, a modern racing yacht with a highly efficient, high-aspect ratio keel and rudder, slender mast and rigging, new, well-trimmed laminate sails, a top-class helmsman and a polished bottom, in flat water, in light to moderate winds, will make almost no leeway. Whereas a bilge-keeled yacht with a stubby rig, spray hood, dodgers, baggy sails, and an inexperienced or inattentive helmsman, in a short chop and force 6 on the nose, might make 30 degrees or more leeway. See here how just 5 degrees of leeway can have a catastrophic effect on your assumption that you should clear Cape Don. In theory, you can measure leeway by comparing your compass course with your course over the ground, measured on a GPS, when there's absolutely no tidal stream setting across your course. You might even try to do it the old-fashioned way by sailing away from a fixed point and measuring the back bearing using your hand-bearing compass. But both methods are pretty much futile because all they tell you is how much leeway you make in exactly those conditions. The only solution is to keep a record of the leeway you've suffered in a range of conditions. Now let's do one from scratch. Imagine that it's the 11th of August, and at 16:30 we sail on a course of 014 degrees magnetic from the BB5 bay just north-northeast of Home Point. We need to plot an estimated position 30 minutes later, assuming we've suffered 5 degrees of leeway due to the northwesterly wind. Our starting log reading is 18.5. First we need to calculate our water track. 014 degrees magnetic, that's 7 degrees of westerly variation, is 007 degrees. The northwesterly wind is on our port side, so we need to add leeway, giving a water track of 012 degrees true, which we plot on the chart. At 1700, our log tells us that we've sailed 3 miles through the water, so we measure this off on our water track. This is our dead reckoning position, in other words, ignoring the effect of tide. High water was at 13:03 daylight saving time, so give or take a few minutes, we're on the high water plus 4 hours. The range is 5 meters, so it springs, and according to the tidal atlas, that means that the tide will be setting 113 degrees at 2.2 knots. Because our estimated position plot is only for 30 minutes, we halve this and plot a tidal vector 113 degrees for 1.1 miles to find our estimated position. If we draw in our ground track, we can see that our course over the ground has been 032 degrees. Well done. You've completed the lesson. Now go on to complete exercise 4.